business program that brings you the struggle stories and triumphant successes of business owners across the land. We can be found locally at the Sun Prairie Media Center, as well as nationally at drawincustomers.com/podcast, or any place where you can find the podcast. We are locally underwritten by the Bank of Sun Prairie. My name is James Kademan, entrepreneur, author, speaker, and helpful coach to small business owners across the country. And today we're welcoming / preparing to learn from Michelle Seiler Tucker, the CEO and founder of Seiler Tucker Incorporated. Michelle, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, James?
I'm doing well. I'm actually excited because one, I see your books and the titles. I looked at your website. Selling businesses seems to be your game, which is so awesome because I feel like a lot of business owners don't even think about an exit strategy when they start their business.
They don't. And that's why 80% of businesses don't sell. Like Steve Forbes says, 8 out of 10 companies will never sell. And the number one reason for that is because business owners don't think about selling until a catastrophic event has occurred. Mm-hmm. Internal, which is, health issues, partner dispute, divorce, or death. External is just pandemic. And when your business is in a catastrophe, that's really the worst time to sell because the business is trending down. Right. Best time to sell is when your business is doing well and you're in your prime. But most business owners really never build a sellable asset that buyers want to buy.
Yeah. So, and you essentially help business owners create or build their business to the point of being a saleable asset. Is that right?
I do. I've been in business a little over 20 years. Nice. I personally have sold over 500 companies. My team has sold over 1,000 altogether.
500?
Before 1,000.
1,000, but you personally sold
I personally have sold 500. Yes.
Wow, that's incredible.
And so, but my company has sold over 1,000, but I learned a long time ago when I entered this industry that most businesses are not sellable. Mm-hmm. So a long time ago, I started my business model where I fix businesses. So I don't just sell them, I fix them, I grow them, I put them on a build to sell model and then sell them for, their desired price tag, the owner's desired price tag, so they too can exit rich.
Nice.
And so I specialize in buying, selling, fixing, growing. We buy businesses and flip them. We also partner with business owners, investing our capital, resources, energy, efforts, expertise, and put them on a build to sell blueprint as well. So we specialize in really buying, selling, fixing, growing.
All right. I have never heard of anyone buying a business and flipping it. Mm-hmm. So let's start there because that's pretty exciting.
Sure. So it's just like flipping real estate, but a lot more moving parts. There are entrepreneurs out there that are called turnaround specialists. Mm-hmm. That's what they specialize in doing. So I'm not the only one. But there's lots of turnaround specialists that look for distressed assets. They leverage the assets of the company to purchase a business, and they fix the business, grow the business, and sell it for a profit.
What is typical turnaround time for something like that?
It just depends upon the issues in the business.
Okay. Well, I mean, like with real estate, sometimes
I would say for me, it's typically 3 to 5 years.
Gotcha. Okay. So it's fairly long term compared to real estate, which is
real estate is quicker because real estate doesn't have employees. Real estate doesn't have inventory and assets and environmental issues and legal issues and everything else. Real estate is simple.
Interesting.
Flipping businesses is not simple.
No. Is there a certain vertical that you guys stay in, or are you all over the place?
No, we're industry agnostic. When we sell businesses, my sweet spot is selling businesses for $10 million purchase price and up. However, my company does take smaller businesses. We just closed on a dental lab for $1.2 million last month. Okay. And then they've got another business that they're closing on. It's maybe $500,000. They got another one they're working on. It's $800,000. They got another one they're working on. It's $8 million. All so right. Yeah, we're we help smaller business owners too. I mean, our big thing is not so much about the price tag. It's more about helping the owner.
Sure. All right. So the owner essentially hires you to be a fixer as well as a broker.
Well, it depends on what they hire us for. A lot of times they start out as hiring us to sell their business, but they don't realize what a mess their business is actually in. And then it's not sellable. Sure. So we work with clients to help their business, to help them get their business ready for sale. Yeah. We also are starting what we call a road to sell funnel, where it's a step-by-step, month-by-month blueprint to get your business ready to exit in the next 1 to 2 years.
Nice. So let's go back 20 years when you first started your business. Mm-hmm. What was your first business? Was this it, or did you learn? more or less on your own.
No. And that's what separates me from other M&A advisors and brokers is I'm an entrepreneur. I've owned many different businesses in many different verticals. Oh, I can't, everybody asks me what my first business was. I want to say it's like baking cookies and selling cookies and lemonade.
Oh,
But
funny.
I also own like a magazine business, a wedding magazine business. I owned
Really? Okay.
an event company. I've owned, all kinds of different businesses in different verticals.
Mm-hmm.
So before I got into selling businesses, I actually had a franchise sales, franchise consulting, franchise development business where I took equity in franchisors' business and put them on the map. And like I said, did franchise consulting, franchise sales. The reason I opened up my M&A firm to begin with is because so many business owners were asking me, do you have an existing business for sale? Do you have an existing business for sale?
Oh, wow.
And I didn't have an existing business for sale. And I'm like, I need to stop saying no. I need to start saying yes, yes, yes. So that's what led me just to setting up my M&A firm.
All right. Nice. So how long has this business been going on? The Seiler Tucker business been going?
Well, I went through a branding change back in 2016, but I've been selling businesses. I've had an M&A firm since 2000.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's been a long time.
Yeah, a little over 20 years.
All right. So you survived the whole 2008 thing. The
Yep.
2020
It wasn't my best year, but I survived. It's like I also survived Hurricane Katrina, which was 2005 in New Orleans, where 95% of my businesses literally went underwater. I survived that too.
Wow. So the majority of the businesses that you buy and sell, are they New Orleans-ish or are they beyond?
No, they're all, well, you see, back then, in 2005, most of my businesses were in Louisiana.
Mm-hmm.
Most of them were in New Orleans. And when Katrina happened, I said, never, never, never will I do this again.
All right.
I will never have all of my business in one geographical area. Mm-hmm. Just like I won't be in one industry, I won't be in one geographical area. So we sell businesses all over the United States, plus I own businesses in other states. Yeah, because I never want to go through that again to where I'm almost completely out of business.
Sure. Because all chickens in one basket.
So. And that's what business owners need to do. They need to stop putting all their eggs in one basket. I mean, it's like the restaurant industry right now. I mean, they're dying because the restaurant owner has all their eggs in that one restaurant basket.
Yeah.
They have no other congruent revenue streams.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't have enough working capital to weather the storm.
Right.
We need at least a year's worth of working capital. I would say 2 years to be on the safe side.
Yeah, that's a tough business when there's not a pandemic. So
right.
No, it's really, really rough. So how did you get into the mergers and acquisitions business?
Well, I just told you I had a franchise development, franchise sales, franchise consulting business. Right. Buyers kept asking me to buy existing businesses. Right. I didn't have existing businesses. I only had new franchises to sell. Mm-hmm. So that's when I decided to start my M&A practice. So I would have existing businesses.
So you look to acquire businesses first, which means that you had to lay out a lot of capital to get those businesses.
No, I started my business brokerage firm, my M&A firm.
Okay.
And I started getting engagements with sellers and started selling businesses.
Okay. So these were not businesses that you owned. You were working as a broker. Gotcha.
No, I didn't start buying and partnering until later.
Okay. Later. How much later?
I don't know. I don't remember time. Maybe 4 or 5 years later.
Sure.
6 years later.
Sure.
Yeah. But I started my M&A firm to sell businesses and merge businesses together. Most M&A firms do not buy businesses and flip them, and they do not partner with business owners. I'm probably the only one that does.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Why is that?
Because they're not focused on that. They don't. A lot of M&A advisors or brokers have never owned a business before.
Okay. Oh, that's very fair. Extremely fair. I can tell you that the ones that I talk to wouldn't even know where to start.
Exactly. So they've never owned a business before because I've owned so many different businesses and different verticals. I have a lot more vast experience than I do.
Why do you feel that you own so many businesses and haven't stuck to one thing?
Because why would I stick to one thing?
Well, a lot of people do. I'm not saying right or wrong, and I certainly don't.
We're industry agnostic. I would never sell just manufacturing or just car dealerships or just this or just that. Mm-hmm. Number one, I get bored easily. Number two, a lot of buyers don't really know what they want. So
Fair.
A lot of buyers are industry agnostic. A lot of buyers are EBITDA specific and industry agnostic. So I think I would be limiting myself if I focus on just one industry.
Sure.
You
That's
know,
very fair.
and I like the variety of different types of industries.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and like I said, there's 5 different types of buyers, and most of the buyers are industry agnostic.
Sure. So how do you help a buyer decide what type of business they're going to purchase?
So it depends upon the buyer. There's 5 different types of buyers. 90% of buyers are first time buyers.
Mhm.
They need a lot of help because they have no idea what they want to do. They don't know what their strengths and weaknesses are. Many of them want to just jump into the restaurant industry because they think that's easy. And that can't be furthest from the truth. Owning a restaurant is
Right.
extremely hard, probably one of the hardest industries you can partake of.
Mhm.
So with first time buyers, I don't really work with many first time buyers at all because the businesses I sell are 10 million and up,
Mhm.
but my team does. And we educate them and we do a skill set analysis to see what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are, what their passions are, what they like to do, you know, and just do that analysis and see what's the best fit for them. We
Interesting.
don't stick people in restaurant. You know, a lot of times buyers look. We had this sweet lady we dealt with years ago that called us about a restaurant, and
Mhm.
she had been in banking industry for 30 years, and she's very close to retirement, but she wanted to buy a business. And I asked her, "Why do you want a restaurant? Have you been in restaurants? Do you know how to cook? Are you a chef? You know, do you have any family members that are restaurant owners?" And she said, "No, it's just I think it's easy." And it will always be in demand. I'm like, no. And I mean, like, if you have no restaurant experience,
Yeah.
you don't need to be in the restaurant industry. I said,
No.
what do you want? She goes, well, I want 9 to 5. I said, well, that's not restaurants. You know?
The opposite of
So
restaurant.
she said, I have $300,000, $350,000. I will invest 300,000. I want to say 50,000 for working capital. I like to find an owner that will do seller financing, and I like to make more than I'm making now. She was making about 125,000 a year. So I went to all my clients that, you know, their business kind of fell in that ballpark range. And a lot of them wanted more money down, but I found a flooring company that was making about, their cash flow was around between 300 to 400,000 a year.
Mhm.
And it included real estate. And I said, yeah, we'll agree to 300,000 down. And so I ended up putting her into a flooring company.
Wow.
Her why, because I always, when it's a first time buyer, you always got to figure out their why. Why do they want to buy a business? Because so many, you know, she had so many people telling her, what are you, crazy? You're this close to retirement. Why
Mhm.
would you just not stay in banking and retire? So your why is going to be strong enough. You know, it's got to keep you motivated. It's got to keep you in the game
Mhm.
because you're going to hear all these naysayers tell you that you're crazy and you shouldn't do that. So her why was that her husband had contracted Agent Orange in
Oh.
the military, and he had outlived really all the doctors' prognosis. He shouldn't even be alive. And she said, when he dies, I lose his benefits. Plus, I don't have anything for my daughter. I want, you know, to pass on my legacy to my child. So that was her why, which is a pretty strong why, right?
It
So
is.
she left her job, left before early retirement, and it was the best decision she ever made because she's making about 500,000 a year now, even
Nice.
paying back the debt of the business. She grew the business.
All right.
But
Very
if I
cool.
would have let her just go into the restaurant industry, that would have been financial suicide for her.
Yeah, she'd be living in a box now.
Right.
Right.
Now, other buyers, that's first time buyers, turnaround specialists, they know what they want. They buy distressed assets. And then there's private equity groups. Private equity groups, they're either going to buy on platform or add ons. And then strategics and competitors know what they want. Same thing with serial entrepreneurs. They're pretty much industry agnostic. They just chase cash flow.
Mhm.
So the only ones you really have to figure out what you want are the first time buyers.
All right. Interesting. The other ones are educated and experienced enough.
They're educated and experienced enough to kind of know what they want. Again, they chase EBITDA. So if we got businesses over $1 million in EBITDA, we have lots and lots and lots of buyers for those businesses because
Mhm.
there are more buyers for good businesses than there are good businesses to buy.
Totally. Yeah. Because I imagine most people, when they want to get out of a business, it's not because they're making money and having fun,
Right.
because they're not making money and it's taking all their time.
Right.
Interesting. So how do you find a business that fits that mold that you believe that you can grow it to the point that's profitable and then therefore saleable? How do you find
How do
that?
I find a business?
Yeah.
I don't find a business. They find me.
They find you. Okay. So they
They
already meet.
find me.
Okay.
Yeah. I
And
don't, I'm not going to partner with 20 businesses a year. I might do one or two deals a year.
gotcha.
I
Okay.
might do one or two deals where I buy a year. The rest of what we do is selling and operating in my current businesses.
All right.
Yeah,
Interesting. Now you have a few books out,
I do.
and it looks like clearly Exit Rich is the one you're pushing. So how about you tell us about that one?
Yes. So, yeah, I make it very obvious.
Yeah. Nothing hidden there. That's all good.
So, Exit Rich, I wrote my very first book. I'll give you a little education on the business landscape. I wrote my very first book called Sell Your Business for More Than It's Worth in 2013 and did the research in 2013 and, learned that 95% of all startups from 1 to 5 years would go out of business, right? That's pretty much common sense. We all know that.
Yeah.
But then when I wrote Exit Rich in 2019 and 2020 with Sharon Lechter, I did the same research and learned that the business landscape has actually flip-flopped.
Oh.
So now only 30% of startups are going out of business. Only 30%. However, out of 27.6 million companies, those businesses that have been in business 10 years or longer, 70% of those businesses are going out of business. And these
All right.
business owners are exiting poor, not exiting rich. They're selling for pennies on the dollar, closing their doors, or even worse, filing bankruptcy.
Mm-hmm.
And so you hear about the big public companies all the time, like Toys R Us in business 75 years, goes out of business.
Mm-hmm.
Montgomery Ward goes out of business. J.C. Penney's in trouble. Steinmart goes out of business. Pier 1 goes out of business. Godiva closes up 1,500 locations. GNC closes 900 locations. So, and the main reason for that is because business owners stop doing what I call AIM, AIM.
Mm-hmm.
AIM is always innovate and market.
All right.
Always innovate and market.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, Exit Rich is all about innovation. It's all about marketing. It's all about not just selling your business because your business is probably not sellable. So it's all about planning what I call your GPS exit model from day one of starting or buying a business and building a business that's sustainable, scalable. So when you are ready to sell, you have a sellable asset. And then it's all about building. It's all about going through your mindset too. Let me talk about that before I talk about infrastructure. It's all about going through your mindset and determining what is your seller sanity. How much money, because business owners come to me and say, oh, Michelle, I want to sell for $10 million. Great. How did you come up with that number? Because their cash flow is like 100,000. So nobody can pay $10 million for $100,000 cash flow. And it always goes back to that's what they need to retire on. Or that's what they need to buy a business or create their next masterpiece. So one of the big chapters in Exit Rich after the GPS exit model is when and why should you sell your business? Timing is everything.
Mm-hmm.
So we take our clients through what we call a seller sanity check to determine what they really need, number one.
Mm-hmm.
And then number two, what are they going to do next? What's their beginning strategy? Because they will never follow through on their exit strategy until they actually have a beginning strategy. And then we prioritize what's the most important thing to them. Is it the purchase price? Is it taking care of their employees? Is it taking care of their clients? Is it growing their legacy? A lot of times it's not even the dollar amount that's the most important thing to them.
All right. It's taking care of their employees, maybe.
Taking care of their employees, growing their legacy. This is their baby. They want to see their big name still shining in lights. They want to see the legacy to continue on. And then we take them through how to build the infrastructure on what we call the 6 Ps.
Mm-hmm.
Because if a business is operating all 6 cylinders, all 6 Ps, then we'll be able to maximize value and we'll have lots of buyers to create a bidding war.
All right.
If it's not, then we won't. So we work with our clients to tune up those 6 Ps.
Okay. Will you share it with us, the 6 Ps?
Sure. I'll share with you whatever you want.
All right.
All my trade secrets. I don't care. So the 6 Ps, number one is people. One of the biggest mistakes that business owners make is they have created a job that they go to work at every day rather than a business that actually works for them.
Yes, definitely.
So Business owners have to focus on their strengths and hire their weaknesses.
Mm-hmm.
You need to learn to delegate.
Mm-hmm.
Put the right people in the right seats and ask the who question. Who opens the door? Who deals with customers? Who does with legal, accounting, marketing, manufacturing, logistics, environmental? The clue, James, is you should never be next to the who.
Mm-hmm.
So all of your listeners should stop what they're doing, pause this,
Yeah.
write down all their who's, and then the names next to each. And again, you don't want to put your names next to any of them because you need the business to run without you.
Correct.
You also want to make sure you have a management team in place.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next P is product. This is your product, your service, your industry. You have to ask yourself, is your product, your industry on the way up or on the way out?
Mm-hmm.
Is it thriving or is it dying? Do you have an Amazon and you're in your prime, or do you have a Blockbuster and you're about to go bust?
Right.
And, during this pandemic, unfortunately, there's a lot of industries that are about to go bust. But I always tell my clients to ask 3 transformational questions. Amazon did this back in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
They asked themselves, what business are we in? And all of your listeners should pause again and ask themselves, what business are we in? And Amazon said, we're in a book selling business. We sell books. Then Amazon asked, what do we do really well, better than everybody else? What is our core competency? What is our USP, our unique selling proposition?
Mm-hmm.
And Amazon said, we do fulfillment better than anybody else. So business owners really got to identify what makes them unique, right? And then the third question, the most obvious question, is what business should we be in?
All right.
Should. And Amazon said we should be in the fulfillment business. We should be fulfilling more than just books. We should be fulfilling everybody's products. Those 3 questions is what transformed Amazon from a small bookseller to a multi-billion-dollar worldwide conglomerate that they are today.
Mm-hmm.
So ask yourself those transformational questions. Business owners have to get out of the tactical, the transactional, and become transformational.
Mm-hmm. I like that.
And then the next P is processes.
Mm-hmm.
Processes are kind of like exit strategy. You never think of them until something bad happens. And you're like, oh, we need a process for that. Processes, most business owners get this wrong. Processes need to be designed with the customer experience in mind.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever watch the movie The Founder, based upon the McDonald brothers?
A few times, yep.
Yep. Okay, so you remember back in the 50s, the McDonald brothers said, we want to create a restaurant around this customer's experience.
Mm-hmm.
We want to create the processes, the fast food system, I think is what they called it back then.
Right.
We want to create the processes around the customer experience. We want the customers to experience great tasting food that's hot, served 30 seconds or less.
Mm-hmm.
You remember when the McDonald brothers went out to the empty tennis courts?
Yeah.
Took chalk, wrote on the tennis courts, all the processes.
Systematizing.
Yeah, systematizing. And they were bouncing around, bouncing into each other.
Right.
And then you had, I think, one of the McDonald's brothers, I think it was Dick or Mac, I don't know, it might have been Dick, that was up on a ladder and he was orchestrating where they all need to go. And
Yep.
it was just
Switch
a
up here.
sympathy. It was a sympathy of systemizing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But those processes that were developed way back then is why you can eat at a McDonald's anywhere in the world and get the same experience.
Mm-hmm.
It's why they can replace somebody within 30 minutes and have them at the front.
Right.
And they design it with the customer experience in mind.
Mm-hmm.
Or have you ever dealt with a company where you're like, oh my God, this was the worst experience of my life?
Just about every new client that we take on with calls on call.
Well, those are your clients. But what about a company, a bank, a social media company, a vendor?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And you have to go through, like, I'm not going to say who, but a social media company. Oh my gosh, it took me 6 months to get my problem solved.
Yeah.
And I couldn't call anybody and I kept emailing and we kept doing all this stuff. Their processes are designed with the owner's agenda in mind, not with the customer's experience in mind.
Mm-hmm.
So bottom line is owners need to start getting this right.
Mm-hmm.
Create happy clients and you will be in business.
Right.
If you don't, your competitors will take them over for you.
Mm-hmm.
So your processes should always be designed with the customer experience in mind. They should be productive and efficient.
Mm-hmm.
If your processes are not productive and efficient, you're going to lose money.
Totally.
And then you need to have them documented. You need to have the systemized approach like a McDonald's or a Burger King or a Whataburger, where you have your SOP checklist, you have your manuals, you have your employee checklist and handbooks and non-competes and contracts, right?
Yeah. No answers where it's all up here, right?
No, because that's the problem.
Mhm.
Like I had a sweet little old lady call me the other day and she wanted to, her husband dropped dead from a heart attack,
Oh,
left him with a mountain of debt, left her with a mountain of debt. She knows nothing about finances or the business. She said, can you please sell this for me so I can pay off the debt? I started asking questions. He had no employees, so he had no people. Then he had no processes. Everything was in his head. When he died, the business died. You got to get stuff out of your head onto paper.
mm-hmm.
Okay. The next P is the highest value driver. So businesses that have under $1 million in EBITDA is earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, amortization. They typically will trade with anywhere from 1 to 3, maybe 4 if they got some synergies. So let's just say 1 to 4. Businesses over $1 million in EBITDA will typically go for 4 or 5 and up. But this P is
Wow.
proprietary. So proprietary assets will get you a much higher multiple. So pay attention to this P if you don't pay attention to anything else. And there's 6 pillars to this. So number 1 is branding. The more well branded you are, the more I can sell your company for, as long as your company's brand is relevant in the mind of the consumers.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning, is anybody paying any money for Blockbuster? No. What's the most valuable brand in the world? Do you know?
Coca-Cola.
Nope. Everybody says Coca-Cola. They're in the top 10, but they're not the most valuable.
All right. Then I have to admit ignorance here. Android? Apple.
Oh, Android. No, they're not even in the top 10. Apple, number
All right.
one. $359 billion just for the brand.
Just for
That's
the
not
brand.
including cash flow, real estate, inventory, assets, accounts receivables. Just the brand is over $350 billion.
Now, how do they come up with a number like that? Because it's not tangible.
There's a lot of different matrix. There's a lot of different matrix and formulas and things like that. And plus, they're a publicly held company. I mean, they're public. So they've got matrix as well. It's easier to come up with a brand dollar when you have a public traded company. And then, so trademarks are very valuable. Trademark your podcast, trademark your company name, trademark Exit Rich, the ST6Bs, STGPS exit model. Here's a mistake that business owners make, James, is they go open up in their state. Let's say they go open up in California. They get a trademark for the state of California, but they never check the federal database. They go to GoDaddy first to make sure the domain is available and never check the federal database. So I've had clients in business for 5, 10, 15 years, all of a sudden receive a cease and desist letter.
Oh.
So they hire an attorney, spend a lot of money, but they're going to lose. And then you got to start all over again and build that brand back up. So make sure that you get a trademark attorney. It's not that expensive, like $1,500 to $2,000, and protect your assets, right? We have a business that we're selling because products too. So if you have any exclusive name products, it could be restaurant, it could be produce, it could be, all kinds of different things. We got a company we're selling that has an exclusive product for each one of their grocery store chains. And each name has a federal trademark. That's worth a lot of money. Patents are valuable too. If you ever watch Shark Tank, what's the same question all the investors ask all the inventors?
They're asking they want to know what their secret sauce is, proprietariness. What do they own that's special to them, right?
They ask, do you have a patent on that? Do you have a patent pending? Do you have a utility patent? In fact, their offers are always contingent upon the patent.
Oh.
We once sold a business for $18 million that wasn't making any money, but they had 18 patents.
Wow.
Contracts are also big. Manufacturing contracts, vendor contracts, distribution contracts, any type of exclusive contracts, franchisor contracts that has lots of franchisees. And then client contracts are the most valuable because buyers want to buy a business that has revenue coming in.
Right.
Especially those contracts that have subscription models with reoccurring revenue are the most valuable to strategics. Here's the caveat to contracts. I've been in this industry for 20 years. I have never met one business owner that has a transferability clause in their contract that says this contract is transferable to the new entity. 99.9% of all sales are stock sales. Unless the buyer agrees to do an asset sale or the clients agree to a consent to transfer, your deal can stop dead in its tracks.
Wow,
So
that's a huge one.
That's huge. Get the transferability clause. Be proactive.
Yeah.
There was a M&A firm that sold, it was a business brokerage firm that sold to a private equity group. And the private equities group due diligence team didn't do their homework. They never looked at the contracts. None of the contracts were transferable. They spent millions on this business, did a big hoopla congratulatory party for all the franchisees. Franchisees didn't like the private equity group. They're like, they know nothing about our industry. So none of them transferred over. Only one out of like 1,500 franchises.
Oh, ouch.
The company ended up going bankrupt, and they ended up suing the entire legal and due diligence team, and obviously won. But you have to have your contracts transferable.
Right.
Databases is another proprietary. Facebook paid $19 billion for WhatsApp, and WhatsApp was hemorrhaging, but they had a synergy. They had 1 billion users, and Facebook knew they could monetize and they could ROI. They could get a return on their investment. So they paid $19 billion for 1 billion users.
Wow.
Celebrity endorsements are big. We have a client that's got Oprah that is endorsing their products. A strategic or competitor would pay a lot of money for that because everybody wants their products in front of Oprah. She's the queen.
Right.
Same thing with radio personalities like a Glenn Beck or a Kid Craddock show or any of these. I used to say Rush Limbaugh, but unfortunately he's gone.
Yeah, right. That one won't do so good now.
These celebrities and radio personalities can only endorse one skincare at a time, one diet company at a time, because they lose credibility. So this is what we call prime digital real estate. And then for e-commerce businesses, if you got any of these top positions on Etsy, Wayfair, Modern, Amazon, eBay, that is a lot of money. Strategists will pay for that digital real estate placement. So that's proprietary. Build your proprietary assets. These are synergies.
Nice.
And then the next,
you give us a lot right there.
Yeah, I did. And the next P is patrons. And I could go on and on and on under proprietary. Let's say you're an engineer or an architect and you have all these blueprints. That's proprietary. Let's say that you're an online educator and you have all these curriculums. That's proprietary. There's so many different examples of proprietary that's extremely valuable to buyers. Patrons is a 5th P. This is your customer base. You want customer you want customer diversification, not customer concentration. And typically the businesses follow the 80-20 rule, where 80% of the revenue comes from 20% of their clients. I'll give you a quick case study. So we're selling an oil manufacturing business, and they had 65% of the revenue tied up in BP.
All right.
65, that's a lot.
That is a lot.
We appraised the company in the $9.8 million range. We have 550 buyers for this one company. We narrowed it down to 12 letter of intents, but every letter of intent had a caveat to their contract, to their LOI, that stated that what the payout was going to be tied to the BP contract. So if they lost BP, then a seller will lose a percentage of that purchase price, like in an earn out, seller financing, etc. But then we found one buyer that has similar products and services, and this buyer had been trying to get in BP for decades and could never get in. So he was willing to take the risk because he's like, if I'm in with this company, I can get my other products and services in there. So he ended up offering $15 million. He paid $15 million for 70% of the company, which was 126% more than the asking price.
Wow.
The appraised price.
Just to get in the BP.
That's how we identify those synergies and identify those buyers that are willing to pay top dollar, willing to pay more and outbid everybody else.
So in something like that, how do you find a buyer like that that's looking for BP or access to BP, but they may not necessarily be looking for a business, right? Or were they?
Well, they have to buy the business.
Right, but how did they find you or you find them?
Well, I mean, we don't advertise 65% of the revenues in BP because then we probably would never get them.
Right.
But we found buyers in the oil manufacturing space that were growing through acquisition and wanted to buy more businesses.
All right.
And we were fortunate to find one that had very similar products and services. They've been trying to get in BP.
Sure.
But a lot of times to answer that question, We are, because we've been in business for 20 years. We already know what private equity groups want, what they're looking for, what synergies they're looking for. Same thing with strategists and competitors. We already know it's in our CRM.
Right. So I imagine, much like real estate, a lot of transactions that happen don't ever get listed.
Yes, that is very true.
Connections that people
Very
have.
true. A lot of our stuff never goes on the open market. That's correct.
Interesting.
And a lot of times we do silent auctions. Like we'll go source out who the buyers are that we think are best, and we'll do a structured auction on that business.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
At that price point as well.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah. And then so the last P, the most important P, is profits. Everybody wants to make money. And the reason I put profits last is because lack of profits is never the problem. Clients come to me all the time and say, Michelle, I have a profit problem. I'm like, no, you have a people problem. No, you have a process problem. If you're not making money in your company, go and look at the people in your organization. Look at your product. Do you have congruent revenue streams? Look at your processes. Are they designed to have happy clients that gave you referrals? Or are they designed to alienate customers and they go somewhere else and you're losing market share? And then look at your IP. Are you spending more money to protect your intellectual property because you didn't do it from the beginning? Lack of profits is never, ever the problem. It's the symptom. If you're running all 5 cylinders, I guarantee you're going to be making money.
Profits automatic at that point.
Correct.
That's fair. Totally fair.
Correct.
Yeah. That's the symptom, not the...
It's the symptom, not the problem.
Yeah, I get it. Interesting.
So that's the 6 Ps.
That's pretty cool. And that all wrapped up is in your Exit Rich book. Is that right?
It is. So the first half of Exit Rich is the STGPS exit model, how you should plan your exit from day one. You want me to run you through that real quick?
Sure.
Okay. So day one, you need to plan your exit. You need to start with the end in mind. That's Stephen Covey principle. Start with the end in mind. And when you want to drive somewhere, James, what do? You pull out your phone, you go to Google Maps, and you plug in your
destination.
Business owners have to have a destination. Business owners have no destinations. Business owners don't plan to fail. They fail to plan.
Right. Seat of the pants.
They're driving around in circles, driving up and down the financial hills to end up nowhere. So you need a destination. You need an end game. You need a desired sales price. Pick a number. I tell all my clients, pick a number. I'm like, oh, the number. They get hung up on a number. Just pick a freaking number. If you want to sell for $20 million, great. There's a number for you, $20 million. Then what does a GPS model need to know? It needs to know where you're starting from. Right. What is your current location? What is your current evaluation? Most business owners never, ever get a business evaluation. It's financial suicide. We go to the doctor once a year to get a physical checkup to make sure our heart's still ticking and we're still kicking. We drive our car to the mechanic to get an annual tune-up. But we never get an annual valuation checkup on our business, our most prized, valuable asset. There are events that increase valuation and there are events that decrease valuation. So you need a valuation checkup every year. So you need to know where you're starting from. So let's say you want to sell for $20 million and you're currently worth $5 million. Next thing you need to know is what?
How do I get there?
Time frame.
Okay.
Time frame.
Yeah.
Huge. Let's say you want to do it in 15 years. I want to sell for $20 million. I'm calling worth $5 million. I want to sell in 15 years. Next thing you need to know is who's my buyers going to be. Not buyer, but buyers. Clients come to me all the time and say, Michelle, I got the buyer. Just represent me with this one buyer. And I'm like, okay, but you're doing yourself a disservice because I can promise you that buyer is probably not going to buy your business. They're going to find something that they don't like and they're going to move on. You need to have backup buyers. You never want to put all your eggs in one buyer's basket. Plus, how can you maximize value? How can you get a higher sales price if you have no competition?
Right. Introduce competition.
Yes.
Sure.
So out of 5 types of buyers, if you're trying to sell a $20 million company, you're not going to be talking to first-time buyers. You're not going to be talking to turnaround specialists. So you'll be talking to private equity groups, strategics/competitors, and or sophisticated entrepreneurs that chase cash flow. Then you need to reverse engineer the numbers and say, okay, to sell my company at 20 million, where's the top line revenue need to be? Where's the gross profit margin? Most importantly, where's the EBITDA? Earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, amortization have to be. To sell for $20 million, You need a company that's doing about 4.5 million in EBITDA.
All right. I
So
suppose it
that's
also depends on the industry, right?
depends upon the industry, but that's a good rule of thumb.
Sure.
I would say between 3.5 to 5
Okay.
in EBITDA. And then you need to know what synergies are these buyers willing to pay top dollar for. And then that's what brings you back to the 6 Ps, building those infrastructures and building out those proprietary assets, those proprietary synergies.
All right.
And then the last thing in the GPS exit model is my why. Why do I want to sell for 20 million? If it was easy to do, everybody would be doing it.
Right.
So you have to have a powerful why, strong enough to keep you in the game, to keep you motivated, and keep you weathering all the financial storms that will occur.
So do you ever take somebody through a practice like this and then they realize they're making bank? They're happy with the business now that you finally helped them. So then they change their mind and like, I really don't want to sell right now. Everything's cool.
Yep, happens. And a lot of times your first offer is your best offer. And I've also seen business owners walk away from a really good offer and then lose everything shortly after that.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Oh,
A lot of times your first offer is your best offer. And yeah, because they get greedy and they're like, oh, well, and they get greedy and
sure.
walk away. And here's the bottom line. A business has life cycles just like a human does.
Totally.
And what goes up must come down. Nothing stays good forever. And businesses go from the incubator stage where they're born. Only 90% of ideas make out of the incubator. Babies go into incubator when they're born, right? And then they go from incubator to infant. What does an infant business need? 24-hour supervision, a lot of money.
Yep, a lot of help.
And then it goes to taller. And what does a taller need? Do you have kids? Do you have toddlers?
I won, not a toddler anymore, thank goodness.
Well, you remember the terrible 2s, 3s, and 4s?
Oh, yeah.
Those toddlers, they're starting to walk. They're starting to make they're starting to destroy everything. So they still need a lot of supervision, a lot of money. And then they get into teenagers, and teenagers are rebellious and think they know it all. And they need a lot of supervision and money, a lot of money. And then you go from young teenagers to young adults, and they're starting to figure it out. They don't need as much micromanagement. They don't need as much money. They're starting to figure out. And then you go to adult. Adult is in your prime. Okay, so let me give you an example. Toys R Us was in their adult phase in I want to say the year was 2015, 2016.
All right.
They were worth $11.5 billion in their adult phase. Adult is when you should sell your business.
Yeah.
Because it's going to stay an adult for so long, and then at some point it's going to go down. So they should have sold then. So they went from adult 11.5 billion to the very next year, James, filing bankruptcy.
Was it really? It was that quick?
Very next year. You go from adult to senior citizen.
All right.
They filed bankruptcy. Then you go from senior citizen to death. 2 years after they were in their adult phase, they closed up all their locations.
Yeah.
Worldwide. And then they went from death to rebirth, and they opened up 4 locations, and they tried to innovate. They did a much smaller boutique model, but they didn't innovate enough. And so they're back out of business again.
All right. I knew they fired back up, but I did not know that they closed up shop again.
Yeah, they did.
Ouch.
So isn't that a perfect example of the business cycle, life cycle?
Totally. Now, going on that example, if they would have sold in 2015 for $11.5 billion or whatever, do you think that they would still be alive now?
It depends upon who the buyer is. It depends on who the CEO is. It depends on the visionary. I mean, the problem is they had, I don't know who was at the top, but the person at the top lacked vision.
All right.
And lacked innovation.
It's just an outdated model.
Yeah. So that's hard to answer because I don't know. Yeah.
All right.
It's like Apple. Apple was almost dead until Steve Jobs came back. And then Steve Jobs came back and said, they asked the same questions. What business are we in? What do we do really, really well? What business should we be in? That's when they said we need to be in the iPhone business, the iPad business, the iPod, this and that and this. They need to be in the connection business. It's just like the founder of the movie The Real Estate. I'm sorry. It's just like the story in the movie The Founder. Do you remember when Ray Kroc was at the bank trying to borrow money because he leveraged his house?
Yep.
And he had a bunch of franchisees, but his percentage was so low, his royalty was so low.
Yeah.
That he wasn't making any money. He was losing money. And then a gentleman followed him outside of the bank and asked him, "What business are you in?"
Right.
He goes,
Not
"I'm in
the
the
hamburger
restaurant business. I'm in the hamburger business." He goes, "No, you need to be in the real estate business. You need to be buying up the land, putting up the buildings, leasing to the franchisee. If they're not compliant, you void their contract, you put another franchisee in there, and they pay you rent."
Mm-hmm.
And that leverage right there, asking those two questions, is what gave Ray Kroc the leverage to be able to take McDonald's away from McDonald Brothers. And
Yeah.
that's why they're one of the largest real estate holding companies in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Go back to the questions. If your business is not doing well, go back to questioning. What business are you in? What do you do really well? What business should you be in?
Right. That's awesome. Yeah, that's such a good movie. I loved
I
it
love
because
that
the
movie.
whole systematizing thing, our rule with my
Yeah.
businesses is systematize everything. I'm working with some authors and some publishers, and they're just like, we can't systematize this. And I'm like, you can systematize
You
just
can
about everything.
systematize almost everything. But the problem with the McDonald brothers is they were great at systematizing, processing, but they weren't good visionaries. They, every
Yeah.
time Ray came up with an idea, they said, no, 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 no.
Yep.
And they weren't really good visionaries. They
Yeah,
were
they didn't have
stuck in
any
that one restaurant.
right. No interest in growth beyond the place that they had.
Well, because they weren't really, look, not every entrepreneur is a visionary. Steve Jobs was one of the best visionaries of all time.
Mm-hmm.
Ray Kroc was a great visionary.
Mm-hmm.
Not all entrepreneurs are visionaries.
No, very true.
And
Very true.
McDonald's wasn't really a great visionary, the brothers,
Right. Yeah,
because they wanted to control everything.
yeah.
You cannot grow without letting go of control.
Oh, I love that. That's perfect right there. Perfect. I gotta hang that up back here.
You cannot grow without letting go of the control, and they wouldn't let go of the control.
Yeah.
And then that's why he did the real estate holding company, was able to take everything over.
Yeah. I remember that scene in the bathroom when one of the Kroc brothers, I don't know which one, was upset.
It was a little
Ray-
one, Dick, I think. Mac was the big one, Dick is the little one.
All right.
Yeah.
And Ray said, "Who's the one with the $1 million check in your pocket?"
What's that?
When the brother was kind of
Yeah.
upset at Ray Kroc
Yeah.
for essentially,
Stealing a company.
scaling the company,
And
really.
he said, "Who's the one with the $1 million check?"
Yep.
Yeah.
So,
And they never did get paid the royalties. We knew they weren't going to.
right.
Yeah. So Ray Kroc wasn't the most ethical guy, but
No.
he certainly was a visionary. And,
Right.
without Ray Kroc, there'd be no McDonald's today.
Right. Right. Good or bad, right?
Good or bad. Yeah.
Right. So it's certainly a great example.
Yeah.
Tell me about your business as far as employees and stuff like that, and how you're working on growing your business.
Well, I have a lot of different businesses. So I have a graphics company, I have medical companies.
Oh,
I have lots of different businesses. So I don't just have one business. I don't put all my eggs in one basket. But
smart.
my M&A firm, we have a team of analysts. We have marketing. We have brokers. We have transaction facilitators.
Okay. And are these employees or are they contractors?
They're both. I
Okay.
got a combination of employees, 1099s, and a combination of interns.
Gotcha. And how you must have managers below you that help you manage all that,
Yes. Yes.
because that's a
But I
lot
too have to
take
follow my own rule.
care- All
I
right.
go off the control to grow.
Has that been hard?
I don't think it's so much hard to let go of the control. It's the hardest thing for any business owner is to find the right people
Mm.
to put in the right spot.
Oh my gosh, yes.
That's the hardest.
1,000 times over.
And 1,000 times over. Because you think you have the right person and then you realize, oh my gosh, I don't. Kind
Yeah.
of like waking up one day and go, oh, I married the wrong person.
Couple people have done that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I'm married for 20 something years, so I'm good.
Nice. Congrats. That's
Thank
awesome.
you.
So where do you see your businesses going in the next, let's call it 5 years?
So my graphics company, we have that on a build to sell model to sell within 3 to 5 years.
Nice.
Same thing with my medical company. Most of my companies are always on a build to sell 3 to 5 years. The only one that I don't really have an exit plan for is my M&A firm because I love what I do.
That's all right.
But
Again,
all my other businesses are on a build to sell plan.
very cool. So that said, in 3 to 5 years, as you sell these, will you be looking into acquiring other ones as
I
replacement?
will. I'm looking at acquiring a franchise company right now.
Nice.
The that's got so many franchises, but we think we can blow them up.
All right.
Yeah. So we're looking at that and looking at other businesses.
Very cool. Do
Mhm.
you, for stuff like that, do you have investors that you bring on for other businesses?
If I bring on a partner, I invest my money. And then if I bring on a partner, I expect them to make an investment too.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. And
All right.
unless they're trading services for equity,
Sure.
let's say it's a marketing company and the business needs marketing,
Mhm.
then we might bring on a marketing firm and give them a percentage of the company, give them equity
All right.
in terms for service, in
Nice.
exchange for service.
All right. I know we don't have a ton of time here. So besides Exit Rich, what other books do you have? Can you remind us?
I have Sell Your Business for More Than It's Worth, Exit Rich. I did write a chapter in a book called Think and Grow Rich. I have a book that's already written, but not out yet, about growing your wealth through acquisitions.
Oh, that's coming out down the pipeline?
That is. So Exit
Awesome.
Rich is the one we're focused on right now.
Yeah.
Exit Rich is going to launch in June 22nd, but you don't have to wait till June. Your listeners can go to exitrichbook.com, exitrichbook.com for $24.79, which is less than Amazon.
Right.
They can buy the book. We will email them the digital download immediately, so they don't have to wait.
All right.
Once we email them the digital download, we will ship their hardcover to their doorstep to anybody that lives in the United States for no additional shipping cost when the book launches in June. Plus, we give them a lifetime membership into the Exit Rich Book Club.
Nice.
There's video content and me doing deep dives in these different techniques and strategies that I've been working with over the last 20 years in the trenches, plus documents to operate your business, documents to sell your business. Example, policy and procedure manuals, employee handbooks, non-competes, org charts, sample LOIs, letter of intents, purchase agreements, due diligence checklist, and closing docs. They're there for your review and your immediate download. You can
Nice.
use the templates. If you went to your attorney to try to recreate all this, it would cost you over $30,000.
I bet. Yeah. Attorneys are not cheap.
And so you're getting this for $24.79
Right.
plus we're giving you a 30-day free membership into Club CEOs, which is a entrepreneurial mastermind that I started to ask those transformational questions and help business owners pivot so
Wow.
they can build that sustainable, scalable, and when they're ready, sellable business so they too can exit rich. I did want to say Steve Forbes has endorsed Exit Rich. Kevin Harrington has written a foreword. He's the original Shark on Shark Tank. Sharon Lecter is my co-author who wrote Rich Dad Poor Dad with Robert Kiyosaki.
Mhm.
She's a New York Times bestselling author 5 times now. And she's a CPA, financial literacy expert, and the advisor to many different presidents. She writes the Mentors Corner after every chapter. Plus, we've been endorsed by Les Brown, Jack Canfield from Chicken Soup for the Soul, Mark Victor Hansen, Brian Tracy, Tom Hopkins.
Yeah, you got a
Ashley.
laundry list. That's cool. That's
Yeah.
very cool. I'm talking to some authors in a few months over in Canada, and it's interesting to see what you got going on with the Exit Rich book. Like, oh, you're doing all right with this.
Thank you.
I love it.
Well, it's a great title, right?
Yeah, it's definitely a great title. There's
So for
no other way to exit.
No, because so many businesses are exiting poor. So
Yeah.
for $24.79, you get all of that and a bag of chips.
Right.
It's less expensive than going to McDonald's for
Right.
a family of 4.
All they have to do is actually implement it, right? And actually do
You got to implement it. We
recommends.
had a gentleman that sent us a testimonial letter that read the PDF version and he said, oh my gosh. He said, where have you been in 20 years? He said, my marketing and media business. He says, I didn't do any of this stuff. I didn't plan my exit, I didn't build
Yeah.
my infrastructure on the 6 Ps. And he said, now he's doing everything step by step by step. And he wants us to work with him because we have a mentor program that we have. It's called Road to Sell.
Okay.
And so anyway, he says he's been making some huge changes and his company has seen a huge profit from just implementing these little tweaks that we talk about in
Nice.
Exit Rich.
That's got to be a good feeling
Yeah, of
when you
course.
hear testimonials like that.
Absolutely.
I love hearing from clients or from students, all that jazz.
Yeah.
They're like, hey, I did this thing that you actually said that I thought you were crazy for telling me, and it actually worked. I'm like,
Yeah, because
who
a
knew?
lot of this sounds so common sense, but common sense is not so common.
Not at all. Not at all. Anyone that's ever tried to hire someone knows that.
Oh my God. Hiring that's the biggest challenge in every business. And I
Yeah.
always say, you know, if you can't change your people, change your people.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. We got to throw that one back there.
And you have to you have to have an assistant. That's another thing I always say. If you don't have an assistant, you are the assistant.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
That is something. It's interesting that goes hand in hand with that letting go of control thing.
Yeah.
Because that's one of those things that I'm graduating to that that's tough. But you talked me into taking the step there. So that's
Awesome.
fair. I love it. I love it. Well, cool. Michelle, thank you so much for being on the show. Can you remind us again where people can find you?
So exitrichbook.com, go get the book, $24.79 for all the goodies and all the golden nuggets. They can also go to SeilerTucker.com, which is my main website, spelled SEILER, SeilerTucker.com. They can also text Michelle to 888-526-5750. And when they text me, my websites pop up, all my social media pops up. They can follow me on social media and connect with me on LinkedIn.
Nice. That is the first time anyone's ever offered that.
Oh, really?
That is cool.
I'm innovative.
Nice. I love it. I love it. That is super cool. Michelle, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks, James. Thanks for having me on. It was a pleasure to be with you.
Yeah, this has been Authentic Business Adventures, the business program that brings you the struggle stories and triumphant successes of business owners across the land. We are underwritten locally by the Bank of Sun Prairie. If you're listening to this on the web, please give a thumbs up, subscribe, comment, and of course, share it with all your entrepreneurial friends. My name is James Kademan, and Authentic Business Adventures is brought to you by Calls on Call, offering call answering services for service businesses looking for growth on the web at callsoncall.com, as well as Draw In Customers Business Coaching, offering business coaching services for entrepreneurs all over the country on the web at drawincustomers.com. And of course, the Bold Business Book, a book for the entrepreneur in all of us, available wherever fine books are sold. We'd like to thank you, our wonderful listeners, as well as our guest, Michelle Seiler Tucker, CEO and founder of Seiler Tucker Incorporated. Michelle, thank you so much for being on the show. This is so much fun.
Thank you, James. I had a blast with you. Thank you so much for having me on.
I've interviewed a lot of people. I always take away at least one or two nuggets. I think you gave us about 57 of them. So thank you so much for that.
57, that's a good number.
So that's we made some progress here, so that's cool. Past episodes can be found morning, noon, and night at the podcast link found at drawincustomers.com. Thank you so much for listening. We will see you next week. I want you to stay awesome, and if you do nothing else, enjoy your business.